Hi, I'm Kiran Trace. Welcome to Humans Decoded, Decoders. This week we're going to look at romance and all the things romantic as we're leading up here into Valentine's Day. Although I suspect for most of us, this will be a save episode that we listen to again and again. Lots of juicy tidbits on all of the pitfalls, whether you are singled or coupled or anywhere else that you wanted to find yourself. I'm happy you're tuning in. Let's get into it. Hi, I'm Kiran Trace. Welcome to Humans Decoded, a story of hobbits, fairies, elves, dwarfs, gnomes, and humans. If you get lost at any point, there is a deep dive on all the different avatars in episode 1. It includes notes. Thank you for joining us in a fun little chat about the vast potential of our human makeup. Hi, Cam. Hi, Leela.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. Gosh, the pitfalls of romance. We have, I think, an abundance of stories to share here.
This is the episode of like, gosh, how embarrassing, exposing so many foibles.
Totally.
And yeah, and I think it's something that's always really juicy for everyone because, you know, regardless of our relationship status, this is something that we're always learning, falling, getting up, learning again. And so I think it's always useful to crack open.
Yeah, just pull out the delusion of this story, of this unquestioned story that is still so dominant in our society. And, you know, if I tell you that you're living the fairy tale of one day there's going to be a knight on the white horse and he saves you, like no matter your sexual orientation, if I tell you that's the sort of the storyline you're living, it sounds like really stupid. It's like, no, I'm not doing that. Of course not. I'm a feminist. I'm woke. I'm a person of the 21st century. But this story can be so subtle that it's worth like really taking it under the magnifying glass and look.
And what if I'm married? Do you think I'm still holding that story that my person's going to just become this?
Or that your person is this? Like, there's tons of projection on your husband, maybe on your spouse, your woman, your girlfriend.
And or your girlfriend,
I mean, most of us aren't even aware of that. And that's yucky.
Yeah, like if you're coupled, this is my person and my person is supposed to save me, understand everything in my heart, understand everything about me. If you're not coupled, I'm looking for that one who will see me and in 2 minutes knows everything about me, regardless of my level of communication skills.
And I feel like these stories start so young, like they've had eons to kind of embed in all the cracks. It feels like the roots are so deep. And I know for myself, like as far as I can remember, I think I've always been like a romantic. I've always had this idea like I'm going to find someone and it's, going to be epic. And I used to watch Romeo and Juliet and Titanic.
Yeah, when Cam and I, when we were preparing this episode, we were laughing about how when we were really young, we had these like fantasies, whole worlds that came out of nothing about this. I don't know, a crush we had on a pop star or how we would be with them, how we would hold hands. Like, it's so silly. But I remember I was skiing with my parents. I was maybe 9 or 10 years old. And all day I would be skiing, but living out this fantasy, how I'm with this pop star. I mean, how embarrassing.
Me too.
I think that's it. Like we learn to trance out so early.
Yeah.
Right? That the fulfillment is going to be when I'm so deeply connected. And I do think that it happens really early because a lot of our families of origins are super disconnected places.
Yes.
And as a child, all of our needs for warmth and affection and connection are not met in this nuclear family crap thing. No no shade if you're a nuclear family listening to this, but just, a lot of our needs for connection don't get met in that environment. And so we begin to trance out in these fantasies.
I remember probably still do, spending entire transatlantic flights like listening to love songs and imagining these elaborate fantasies about how I'd get kissed in the rain, But then it's not like, I don't know, but then you switch on the in-air entertainment, movie, and it's coming at you from all the different directions. Like, it's in romance movies. Like, you can't escape it. Nobody's checking this story and saying, like, make sure it's accurate. Everybody's like, no, keep going.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's like we're fed on the movies on the airplane or the channels, like any of those songs. It's all about the one. Honestly, it can be action adventure. It can be drama. It's not even just rom-coms, right? Like it's coming at you everywhere. And yet that's not the home of the real connection you seek.
Exactly. It's like we're chasing the story of love, and we think love is that. Love is the trance where I live in this fantasy. It's the kiss in the rain. It's, skiing. It's blah, 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 blah. But prepare yourself. There's a whole lot of delusion coming. But I find like one of the challenges in really looking at Jesus fucking Christ once again, I'm chasing the story of love, is that, yes, it's coming at you from all sides. Everybody kind of lives this trance. It's presented as the ultimate ideal to couple, right? Like whatever form of partnership, that's the goal. That's like what humanity strives towards.
Absolutely. Whether gay, straight, like even like in asexual beings are still pressurized to couple.
I mean, it's funny, I talk about the fantasies in past tense, but it's very much like a daily, like a daily struggle. So I came up with this metaphor that every time romance kind of knocks on my door, this flock of chickens gets released from the chicken coop, and they all run berserk in different directions. They all have like individual little stories. Some of them are unbelievable fantasies. Others are, doom and gloom. But it's just pure chaos.
Oh my God, I love that so much. The flock of chickens. And every one of them running around with a different story. Like their heads are going to get chopped off and it's chaos. Oh, that's fantastic.
I mean, that's one of the signatures of the romance bullshit. The romance trance is this chaos, but there's another signature that Kiran would call cocaine, right? An element of addiction to this whole thing.
Absolutely. I love this like 10 out of 10 metaphor. So if we launch from that place, so decoders, if every time the image of romance came into you, you immediately thought of your chickens getting released. The thing that's driving them, the fuel source is this cocaine. We're mammals. Humans are mammals. And so so touch is a real thing. And then touch, especially sex, puts off so many dopamines and serotonins. There's so many chemical drips that begin to happen through your own chemistry that it's very much like Coke, like having this huge doping from your own chemical receptors. And that's what sex gives us. And sex being like an expanded form of that word is like like holding hands in the rain or that lingered kiss on the ski slopes. Like, let's define it in all of those expanded ways. And yeah, so all of this lays out an enormous amount of chemical dopamine. And we get highly, highly addicted. So many humans are in really tragic, toxic, terrible relationships. Is what they're addicted to is the chemical drip that's happening and then trying to make the circumstance work so they can keep getting their hit. And just like we see this everywhere, right? So this is not only just like teenage storyline. And I think because we're three women, we've been focusing on the female point of view, but it's the male fantasy too, right? Teenage male fantasy or whatever. But this is just as Cammie's saying, it's like a daily thing. And
This is
we see
yesterday.
this everywhere. It happens in spiritual circles lots of times. I mean, we've been, like misconduct in spirituality is a major thing. And what happens, the first bar of misconduct is if a student dates if a teacher dates a student, because there's an enormous power imbalance immediately. Now, most male teachers will absolutely step over that line without even thinking about it and justify it in a million ways. Because of patriarchy, the males don't always see the power imbalance as loudly as females. We don't see a lot of female spiritual teachers dating their male students. It's not never heard of, but it's much more uncommon. But as soon as that begins, we have an power imbalance, right? But it's the same story going on in like the teacher, it's like there's this student and there's this whole fantasy that if I'm with them, we're going to be like connected in this presence of spiritual bliss. So you see it, in the meditation hall, or like people go on spiritual retreat and the entire retreat, they had this total fantasy about this person on retreat with them. And it was like 4 days of silence or 7 days of silence. And there was the whole time playing out so loudly is this like romantic fantasy about this other person that you know nothing about.
Remember that one time we went on retreat and everybody was crushing hardcore on, the musician we had at the time? That was funny.
Oh, yes. Yes, totally. So like there's no community that this is not occurring in, even in like a totally silent, spiritually focused retreat. And I would say that a lot of practitioners crush super hard on their teachers.
Yeah. But it's this thing that we see also in other areas, right? This a longing for something that isn't just here now, like a longing for something out there, for a story that one day I can become whole with my partner, or I will have a partner, and then we're this beautiful union, or the family, or
today's the day. I remember so many Valentine's Day when I was coupled and feeling like having this thing of like, okay, today's going to be special. And it's so not. Valentine's Day is so female centered and the men are like, I don't know what to do. And and so often that like, having this unchecked story running and then getting disappointed because it didn't meet my expectations, and then feeling this internal shame, and then this like, well, never mind, make the best of it.
I mean, I never had it about Valentine's Day. That was never super interesting, but I had it every other moment of my life. I had all these expectations on my partner at the time, and I was offended if he didn't get it, even though I didn't say anything or never communicated. Gosh, and I mean, just the other day, I was deeply triggered because my sweetheart didn't like a post I posted, but mentioned it in a message. I mean, that's completely insane. And I see the insanity of it, but still. But then even though we see these stories as these things, it's insane. It doesn't, in reality, there's absolutely no truth to it. It doesn't mean anything. Like pain body or conditioning doesn't really want to give up that story. It wants to keep it because it's like this false god. And also, it can be so subtle that we said in the beginning, you look to your partner, your better half, as it's sometimes called, you look to them for love and safety and the sense of belonging. It's like you put all that on them. You kind of make them the source of it all. So they're a false god. They're the golden calf, as it's called in the Old Testament in the Bible. And I mean, that's a little problematic, right? Problematic in the sense that it's just not true at all. Like there's no truth to that at all. But it just means that if that relationship ends for some reason, it's fucking rough because it feels like your safety, your love is gone.
Yeah, I always find when it comes to romance, it's so like the identification happens so quickly. It always feels so high stakes, and it feels like it's just something so solid and delicious for the pain body to kind of wrap its sticky little hands around. And I find the stories usually have like this very far from the ground, divorced from reality fantasy, which is Lala, or like harbingers of doom, like abandonment.
And we're talking in a really female-centric way, but also just for the men listening, right? Like for men, it's more like sexual fantasy is what we're talking about when we talk about romance. Of course, lots of men can also have like a very kind of story of romance, but traditionally that falls under women's story. And for men, it's this sexual fantasy space that in this sexual interaction, this is going to happen for me. I'm going to get this. And it's the same. It's the same. I'm going to get the attention. I'm going to get seen. I'm going to get heard. I'm going to get that connection, that deep sitting in the heart of like true, warm, forever connection is going to happen in this interaction. Right? That's what we're talking about is that romantic la-las, as you're saying, the fantasy place that, the identification is so quick because, of course, all of the drugging from your chemical receptors get applied to that fantasy, to that la-la.
They're turbocharged by chemistry.
Exactly. So the identification is click to grid.
Totally. But then at some point, the fantasies pop and the chicken flock is so obvious out of there in the sunlight. It's like all these wounds are uncovered. And in that way, I find romance quite effective, efficient to see your stuff, to see your wounds. It might not be, I don't know, it might not be the most gentle way to see your wounds, to see your pain bodies, but it's super effective, I can tell you.
I love that about dating apps. It's like even more effective at seeing your stuff. Like I have a bunch of great articles and we'll link them below on dating apps, romance. There's a whole section on the blog on romance, unlike love and romance. But that you kind of like you swipe left or swipe right and immediately get a face plant into your own ridiculous belief systems. Whether you're getting ghosted or connecting or you're whatever's going to go on, it's just an absolute mirror of your internal wiring in this area. And it doesn't matter what app it is. It's like whatever it is, whether it's a hookup app or a dating app or a just meeting friends app. I think the apps are just these really brilliant mirrors. Like it's an even more amplified mirror of your stuff. And if you want to work out your stuff, get on the apps.
I remember Ram Dass, one of the spiritual teachers of the 20th century, has this saying that if you think you're enlightened, go spend the weekend with your parents. And I wrote an article somewhere. If you think you're enlightened, go on Tinder and watch yourself there. It's so true. Yes, please. But like, despite all this, I don't know, bad mouthing of romance. I mean, I don't think that's what we're doing here, but just shining the real light of awareness on it. I would say for me, at some point in my evolution, there was a point where it was really more life. It felt like an expansion to go play with the dating apps, to go play with romance, to explore the world with other people. Because at some point I felt really safe, just me alone on my couch with my cats. With that, I was really comfortable, just, me and God. And then that became, my little pain body of not safe, saw it as, okay, this is safety then. And other people are probably not safe, especially not men. And then the whole dating journey and dipping my toe into romance and having relationships was really beneficial for this evolution to see that being with other people is very, very safe. Men can be very safe. Just to pop that story, for me.
For you, if we flip it, because if we flip it and say you're coupled and you have this really comfortable place with your partner, and you sit on the couch with your partner and you're watching your movies and you do your habits every night, the place to risk there is like these deeper levels of communication and authenticity and delicious. And it can be safe, and it can be, an incredible mirror of your own belief systems. But I think we definitely get very comfortable in relationship, even though it's not the most alive or can the most alive true moment of connection between either of you. Like I find lots of times that I'm in lots of times. I mean, this is so common. Lots of times couples, same sex or separate sex, are maybe even engaged in coitus, like actually having sex, and both of them are popped out into their own separate fantasies. And this is incredibly common. Because we have this habituated way that we're being, whether it's with ourselves or with ourselves and our partner, or with ourselves on a hookup, and it's this habitual pattern. And to actually leave it for the aliveness of the present moment, and then to actually ask and expose ourselves in the present moment for what is actually deeply delicious is so exposing and terrifying and put so much on the line for us. But it is safe. And I think that's what you're saying. But it's totally safe.
Yeah, and I know for many people, it's kind of the other way around. It's about finding out how safe it is to be alone, just you and God. But because of my journey, my individual journey, it was the other way around for me. It was like, okay, we're good alone. We're really good. But then to come into relationship, whether it's friendships like with you guys or, I don't know, romantic relationships, and explore all that there. And exactly that, the vulnerability, the communication, the daring to speak. Oh, I mean, that's hot. Cami, you sometimes say it's spicy.
I feel like romance is a really spicy way to kind of explore your blocks and to like find authenticity in the company of another being or in the company of an intimate relationship. It's kind of fun, kind of terrible. I'm sort of in the trenches a little bit in that I'm just playing with dating and seeing like all these different sort of conditions pop up. Yeah, finding my own authentic voice inside of relationship is always I don't know if it's a challenge, but it's like it's really delicious to explore, and it's really delicious to have that option on the table. So I feel like it's cool that we include romance because we're not excluding anything. Like you don't have to go and live in a temple and be free of your problems. Like you can find, authenticity inside of your own life, whatever shape that looks like.
And that's the big risk that's so incredible, is moving yourself into the moment and out of the bubble of thought and bubble of la and bubble of fantasy. You move yourself into the present moment, and you're listening for like what's true in this moment for your being, and where's that delicious option, and then to bring another being there with you is amplifying the process, amplifies the mastery, but then also can be such an incredible mirror of your stuff. If you want a quick, check of where your baggage is like, be very authentic in the moment with another and walk that process. It's unbelievably exposing, but it's definitely the quick hack to like find all your baggage.
And I find it helpful on this courageous journey to have a buddy that is sort of my mirror in the moment, a buddy where I can just expose this romantic story I have, expose all the stories that want to blow themselves up to a whole world and pretend they're real and urgent and important.
Yeah, in class we do the CW buddies. We get buddies in the Kiran Joyce program, but you can use your friend, or you can use a even acquaintance that you just set up with, because how liberating to get off that flight for like the air flight, and actually just confront and like be able to say, do you know, I just spent 3 hours on a plane totally fantasizing about some story, like just to pop the bubble.
Exactly. It's so refreshing to kind of look at myself being stupid in love and just see it, and that opens up the option or the space to just, backwards, just walk myself back out of it, get clear again, sober up.
Sober up. I feel like half of my calls to Leela are admitting, like, yes, yes, we were stupid in love.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I should say that. Like, Cam's my buddy in this whole thing. But yeah.
I have this body of work. I call it Red Love, Blue Love. And what I'm referring to is that, like, red love is a grippy love. It's the chickens love. It's the I'm going to go get something love. It has a grip and attachment. So it has this heat to it. And as a society, we up-level it. We celebrate it. We call it passion.
Valentine's Day.
And yeah, Valentine's Day. We just think it's the best harbinger of love there is, but it's not. It's just our pain bodies being really grippy, trying to get seen, trying to be connected, trying all the things we've been talking about, trying to be special, going to be special. And so that's red love. It has a grip to it. And blue love, it's very cool. It's very spacious and it's very non-attached. And the blue love is like, there's nothing to be gotten at all, anywhere. It's like, so my experience is very much that these days, where it's just very like so clear that I'm so profoundly loved, like moving always in this just very connected, very warm, very seen love, whether there's anyone else in the room or not. Like it absolutely has nothing to do with another person at all. And it seems the blue love is like there's nothing to get from it, and yet the love exists. And yet the love is there. And I'll often say, like, life just puts these beings or these people underfoot. And there's just this love, but it's not in order to. There's no becoming, there's no grip, there's no nothing around it. It's just freedom. And I call it red love, blue love, because this sweet friend of mine, Ilsa, beautiful woman, one day, 100 years ago, it feels like, but maybe 20 years ago, she was very, very, very awake. She was one of those very beautiful awakened beings that just sort of secretly woke up and carried on her life. She wasn't a teacher and she didn't write books and she didn't, but she was married and then she had 2 children. And she said to me, I always felt very different at the play groups with my kids. I could see all the other parents loved their children with like a red love. And she was like, I always loved my children with a blue love. And I was aware that I was different. And so so those colors come from Ilsa of just like, yeah, that's right. That's right. This non-attached, I absolutely love my children, but it's a very cool, non-attached. My children are not an extension of me, and therefore whatever they do doesn't reflect on me. And I sit here and witness them in an enormous love. And when people first hear about it, when I talk about red love, blue love, people like the feeling of a cool love is like, nah, I'd rather have that warm, hot, red love. But the irony of the whole thing is that blue love is like you love 100 times bigger because of the lack of attachments, because there's no these threads aren't hooking in, and wherever those threads are hooking in, they limit the capacity for love. Versus the blue love that's just so enormous. And I used to think that all the time. I remember when I first woke up and I was uncoupled, and then I started to date, and I thought it's ridiculous to date because I love these people 100 times more than they could even imagine love to be. Like the love that they have for me, because they only know red love, and it's like a drop in the bucket. It's so pathetic versus the kind of blue love that's so big. I thought, wow, the inequality of the love here is so ridiculous. Not that I would get less, because obviously I'm sitting here and all there is, but that they will not understand my references of love, because I'm in an ocean, and they're literally like holding their hand out for a drip. Like the whole reference place is so different. So blue love is a different terrain than red love.
That's such a beautiful. I remember the first time I ever felt the love of source, and it was this moment of recognizing that's what I've always longed for. So I was watching Titanic, thinking it was Leonardo DiCaprio, but no, it was this, and this is here. Like, oh, yeah. How do you quantify? How do you put words to that? It's just love. I don't know. No words.
It's always that. I love that language because I hear it all the time, because people will say to me all the time, they connect into source for real, and they turn to me, whether it's in a call or in a retreat or at my house, whatever. And there's always this turning moment. They stare at me really big eyed, and it's like, oh my God, this is what I've wanted my whole life. This is it. And that's like, they're really talking about the love. And that's like, it doesn't matter. Like, it's not like, oh, here's mom love, now I want to go date, or here, it's the whole love. It's everything. It's everything. It's like, whether it's like a gay man who's been looking for this kind of attention with a million hookups, and then he suddenly looks at me and he's like, wait, it's been here in my pocket the whole time, this love. Or whether it's, like someone absolutely popped out in a la fantasy for 2 years about their boss or whatever, and then they turn to me for a second. It's like, oh, that thing I was chasing, it's right here. It's right here. Like it just across the board, it doesn't matter what it is you were seeking or what shape you were seeking it in, or whether it's the student who's having an affair with their spiritual teacher, or the teacher who's dating their student, like, whatever it is, it's like pop, and then it's pops, and then it's like, oh gosh, what I was looking for is just right here. But then,
and then it's like, Cam and I just had one of these calls the other day, and I was saying, just please, I just want the moment to do romance, not me. Don't let me be involved. And then it was like, oh, but then if the moment does romance, it's like romance doesn't exist, because it's just this big whole love. And where would, like what you said before, you sit in this ocean of love and here's romance, and it's kind of a drop. And why would you want that? It doesn't, it just pops the whole thing. And it's like, oh.
Yeah, I was saying this to Cam the other day, because we were watching some unbelievable. Oh, we were watching The City of Angels.
It's a very romantic movie.
Outrageously romantic. Like every romantic cliche in the whole world popped into this movie. It's about an angel so in love with a human he drops to earth, and his lines, and it's the most beautiful, Nicolas Cage there ever was, and Meg Ryan that ever was, it's every cliche of romance. And we were watching it this other afternoon, and I said to Cam, it's so funny. It just like washes through. It's like, it's like, I don't understand the language they're speaking. I don't know what the words mean. They're referencing a romance, and I have no references for it inside of me. And so I'm watching this beautiful filmmaking, like fantastic filmmaking. And there's nothing for it to touch inside of me. So I was watching it and just being like, yeah, I'm kind of really just sort of watching the sunset outside the window behind the TV and just watching pretty faces on the screen, because it's like Greek to me. I don't know this language.
I guess you're probably the only being on this planet right now, Kiran, who's completely free of the romance bullshit. I don't know.
I don't know if I'm the only one. I'd love to think that there's a bunch of us. But I would say, like, having been so deeply around every element of it, like having had a twin flame, like the real one, not the, it's a soulmate. Yeah, it's if you have a real twin flame, it's the worst thing in the entire world. You wouldn't wish it upon your enemy, and how embarrassing to create that twin flame you had spent so many lifetimes wishing for each other and committing to each other. It's so unbelievably insane and embarrassing. But having had real twin flames, having had numerous soulmates, having had a couple of marriages, like having pondered and pined, it's sort of like, I'm not that old, but I have been on the every form of love road since I was a baby, because my very violent childhood put in so much like longing for the mother, longing and like, so I think I've been, obviously I'm a very old soul who's been around a lot. and I started early in this lifetime, and I'm so lucky to be out the other side. But I'd like to think there's a bunch of us, and I'd like to just remind everybody on this Valentine's Day that it's in your pocket. It's not in another person. It's not in your children. It's not in your partner. It's not in the guy you swipe left on. It's not in the fantasy rock star in your head. It's not in the, it's not in the mirages of illusions posted on every movie you're going to see. All of that is such a tin, artificial, dime store version of the thing you have in your pocket. And if there's anything you're going to celebrate this weekend, celebrate connecting to that in your pocket and all the ways that will bring you home, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, nothing to add to that. Just an amen.
We do have an avatar shopping guide, but there are, in every one of the avatars, we have, Adyashanti's My Secret is Silence is, I think, in the Elf list, which is my all-time favorite Adyashanti poetry book of his poems. I think for the fairies, there's a true meditation audio book, also by the great Adyashanti, but the most sublime description of meditations. I can't remember if it's the Hobbits or the Gnomes, Mary Oliver devotions, poetry to just bring in the silence and the truth of the moment. So we have for all the avatars, these beautiful ways to connect to that in your pocket. And of course, little candle, little bling, little jewelry, bit of chocolate.
Gift for yourself. Yeah, go check it out.
And also in the female section, there's a section on our shopping guide called Female Intimates, and there's 2 extraordinary books there that are just must-haves for everybody, men or women who sleep with women. If you have sex with women, then there's a book called Slow Sex, which is phenomenal. It's phenomenal at breaking down what sexuality is for women. And there's some other incredible things there. So
go check it out.
Yeah, so we have some little lovely gifts, and the Valentine gifts are all sort of under $40. Maybe there's some really gorgeous pajama sets or something that are maybe $80 or something. But anyways, it's quite inexpensive, but a little support from us to spend the weekend exploring the love and connection that you've always wanted and you are literally sitting on.
Yum. And also, if you head over to the Facebook group and want to share your stories about romance and your embarrassing moments, we would love to hear from you as well. Like, we keep exposing our stuff here, and it would be nice if you guys gave us something back.
There's a ton there's a ton of your buddies. A bunch of your buddies are over there in the Facebook group, spilling their guts. So if you need, a share buddy to just pop some of your stuff, They're right over there. Links below.
Bye.
Bye, decoders. Love you all. Happy yourself.
Thank you for listening. We obviously love hearing what you think. Your feedback helps us make a better show for you to listen to. So feel free to comment, and you can do it at Facebook, which is the Humans Decoded podcast. And if you're not on social, you can always email any questions to us at outreach@kirantrace.com. And thanks for listening. We love you.